Hello and welcome to the Crackpot podcast with James LaFond and Lynn Lockhart. This is the first episode presented in 4 parts. We taped this episode on June 15th and we hope you enjoy it. Here is part 3.
I'm terrified of automobiles, actually.
Well, you're a pedestrian.
It has nothing to do with the fact that a few people had tried to run me over. I was scared to death of automobiles from the time I was a young child.
Do you know how to drive? Do you know how to drive?
I've driven a few times. When I was spending so much time on buses, getting back and forth to work, it really cut down on how much time. I had 6 jobs. I'm working 118 hours a week, and I'm spending a lot of time getting back and forth to the first and the last job on the bus. Sometimes somebody I worked for would drop me off if we were delivering pizza or whatever. But
that's so
my wife
insane.
taught me how to drive.
Okay.
And I had been sleeping in automobiles for so long. That's where I got all the sleep. Was in cabs, sedans, and some heroin addict was trying to get $10 for a fix. He'd pick me up at the bus stop, and I'd give him $10, and I'd get to work early and make an extra $15, or on a bus. I would sleep every time. It was a powder blue Ford Escort that I bought her, 82. Every time that I would shift that thing in the second gear, I would nod out and fall asleep. She said, "You're going to be dead in a week."
Oh, dear.
It's that.
Yeah.
So we scratched that. Then my roommate, AJ, 15 years later, taught me how to drive. And she's a very aggressive driver, big NASCAR fan. Likes to put on heavy metal music and, speed when she drives. She taught me how to drive on this Walmart parking lot, and I found it exhausting. She said I did good, but after 10 minutes of driving this thing around, I was exhausted. So that's some kind of I do fine with stand behind forklifts and tow motors and stuff, in stock rooms or in supermarkets, but anything that moves you around while you're operating it just freaks me out. Yeah, I would, it's something, somebody told me they thought I was reincarnated from somebody that died in a terrible automobile accident.
Yeah, that could be.
But it's something that I've never really been able to fathom.
Yeah. Well, it was important in my family. My dad, he still watches Formula One and other stuff. And he thought that children should learn how to drive pretty early. Like, pretty much if you can reach the pedals, you need to know how to drive. So he got us behind the wheel. And
well, that might have been what I needed.
Yeah, if you had learned earlier, it would somehow have imprinted into your brain more deeply or something. But you're doing fine.
I get a lot of material based on my my methods of transportation.
Yeah. And you can rest. I still can't. I've read your accounts of those days when you were working 6 jobs and sleeping on the bus, and I can't really get that. I don't know how you did that and how you could remain healthy. And I don't know how you do that.
I don't think I've ever really been healthy.
Yeah.
The sleeping on a bus was, there was one time I woke up to these 2 guys arguing about whether or not to shoot me in the back of the head before they got off the bus, which was kind of scary.
Yeah.
And it came down to their lack in point blank marksmanship. They thought since I had a trench coat on that I had a gun, and after they missed shooting me in the head from 6 inches away, that I might turn my gun on them. So that settled it. So they left me there. But for the most part, when you sleep on the bus, all the oppressed that I afflict with my Caucasian privilege, when I get on the bus, they think I'm a heroin addict. because they think I'm a heroin addict and I'm nodding out. So they'll actually clear out the seat next to me.
So it works out. So
yeah. Yeah.
And why do you need to stay away from a heroin addict? Can you enlighten us who do not ride buses with heroin addicts?
Oh, well, because they'll drool on you.
They'll drool.
And these aren't the kind of people you want any of their,
the bodily fluids. And they're broke, right? So they're not really worth hassling.
Right. Yeah. So they're just bad. And I usually dress worse than a heroin addict, so I don't have any problem pulling that off.
Yeah. Well, that's a question I've had for you. Is the bus some kind of magical safety zone? But what you're telling me is that you have your own safety measures on the bus, which is impersonating a heroin addict.
Being on the bus used to be very dangerous. But since they put cameras on the bus, the crime has moved to the approach to the bus stops.
That's where all your scary stories are nowadays. It's the bus stops. Yeah.
Stuff used to go down on the bus. Now the poor people down on the number 10 last week when that guy from Middle River was having a gunfight with the cops, that wasn't a safe bus to be on.
Well, sure.
But he was nice enough to let him off.
That video was totally insane.
I loved when the cop told the brother that was filming this, he's running around. At some point, the gunman's like running towards him as he's shooting at the cops, and this guy's running around. Some cop comes up and tells him to get back in his house. And he says, "That's not my house. I'm not going in there."
But it was crazy. I think that, I know, I watched it a week ago. I think there was some woman near the shooter, like, kind of climbing around on the grass.
Yeah, and he was using her as cover.
And he wasn't,
He was crouching down behind her while he was reloading.
And she was kind of pretty blasé about the whole thing, I thought.
Well, she had a lot of body mass. I mean, that was, I thought he was doing a pretty smart thing there.
Oh, man.
She had a big head. Her head must have weighed 20 pounds.
Oh. It's insane.
I used to work at that shopping center years ago.
Yeah.
And it usually was a decent working class area. We didn't have to worry about any kind of crime, but all those perceptions are pretty much going out the window around here.
Yeah, you can have a shootout like that at any moment. That's just that's a war zone.
Our chief of police is complaining about the fact that, get this, 60% of the people who are convicted for firearms violations in Baltimore City get a suspended sentence, which means they get nothing.
Yeah.
They just let them go.
Yeah.
That's 60% of the people who are convicted for committing a crime with a firearm. They just walked.
It's a failed state. I think that's what you call that. It's a failed state. That the government's completely illegitimate.
Yeah. It's bad. I wouldn't say it's completely failed yet. We still have some fun left in the bag. Not all the rats have gnawed their way out yet.
Look on the bright side.
I mean, this, now that we had the Murder Bowl going, I'm hoping that Baltimore becomes like the Pittsburgh Steelers from the late 70s. Or like the 80s Dallas Cowboys, just really a dominant force in the sport.
Yeah. Year after year. Just how do they keep it up?
They get enough people on deck to step up. It really is amazing.
It is. Because they're mostly killing each other. I mean, if Baltimore wins, then that's that many fewer players for next year, right?
Yeah. Well, but the way they do it, because it's deaths per 100,000.
Yeah.
You're making things easier on yourself every time you kill somebody, because that person's not going to be counted. Okay.
And maybe, maybe like a half a dozen people associated with that person will leave Baltimore. They're like, oh, that's it, you know. We
The
have to
people
go now.
associated with the people that are getting shot, they're not leaving Baltimore. No, they're reproducing.
I guess they have to. Someone
Yeah.
has to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Now that most of the violence that's happening in Baltimore is not reported, you're never going to see it reported again. All the statistics coming out of law enforcement in the future in cities like Baltimore is going to be completely unreliable.
Yeah, it's
They
completely cooked.
massaged the numbers before, but now it's a done deal. And they're not even reporting this stuff.
Yeah,
It's not got a chance of getting in the database. And then when it does, you're going to see maybe 1 out of 100 home invasions is going to be called a home invasion. The rest of them are going to be burglaries or robberies,
right?
Assault, something like that.
Right.
In Baltimore County, we had some crackhead goes into this 90-year-old woman's house and takes her purse off of the chair that she sits to in her dining room, and they call it a burglary. You know, because he didn't like club her over the head with a brick or something. He didn't have to. You know,
right.
Years old. Yeah, that's a burglary.
Yeah.
Now, and most of the stuff just plain doesn't get reported now. Cops don't go out. So, can't blame them. All right. Not my favorite group of people, but
yeah. It's and
dog.
Sorry, go ahead.
They're supervisors. Threw them to the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's another thing about Baltimore compared to like an average kind of suburb or small town or whatever, where we have really decent police, I think. But your police are just, I mean, I'm remembering that email from that ex-cop that it's like, why are you so mean to cops anyway? What did they ever do to you? Except they're all corrupt. They're all stealing and selling drugs and using drugs and abusing hookers, and that's just perfectly normal for Baltimore police. Oh, and Oakland, which is our Baltimore of the West that we have here in the Bay Area, they just put a bunch of cops in jail for abusing a hooker.
Oh, that's our sister city on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I did read a book I read 2 books about crime in Oakland. And one of them was really good. It was on the Black Muslim bakery.
Thank you for listening to part 3 of episode 1 of the Crackpot podcast with James LaFond and Lynn Lockhart.